A story in clay. The sun had barely risen over the village of Larkhill when Robin, the young son of the village potter Matthew, sat on the stone steps outside his home, a lump of clay in front of him. His hands were covered in dust, his hair tousled from sleep, but his eyes were alive with ideas. "Father," Robin called into the house, "Father, I have an idea." From inside, Matthew's steady voice responded, "Ideas again, Robin? What is it this time?" Robin grinned. "It's something new, something useful, and it tells a story." Matthew appeared in the doorway, wiping his hands on a rag. "A story? What kind of story does clay tell?" "You'll see," Robin said with a glint in his eye. "I just need to shape it first." Matthew raised an eyebrow but didn't argue. He had long learned that his son's ideas, though odd at times, often had a spark of brilliance. "All right, show me when you're done." Robin nodded eagerly and got to work. His fingers shaped the clay with care, pressing, rolling, and smoothing it into a long, winding shape. His mind raced as he worked, weaving together the story he wanted to tell. A few hours later, Matthew wandered back outside, drawn by the soft sounds of his son's voice as he hummed a tune. "How's it going, Robin?" Matthew asked, leaning against the doorway. Robin didn't stop working but grinned over his shoulder. "I'm almost done, Father. This is going to be something special." The clay now had the shape of a scroll, but not just any scroll. Its surface was patterned with intricate symbols, flowing in a winding path around the object. There was a certain flow to it, a life that seemed to pulse beneath the surface. Robin lifted it carefully from the stone slab and placed it in the sun to dry. "There," he said. "What do you think?" Matthew stepped forward, inspecting the piece with a critical eye. "It's unusual. What are these designs, Robin?" "It's a story that can be understood just by looking at it." "A story in clay?" Matthew said, impressed despite himself. "You're telling me this thing tells a story?" "Yes." Robin's eyes shone with excitement. "This is the story of the village, Father. How Larkhill came to be, how the first potter shaped the earth, how the farmers sowed the fields, how the first spring rain saved us. All of it, right here in the clay." Matthew looked at his son, astonished. "You're telling the history of the village in clay?" "Exactly." Robin beamed. "And it could be passed down, shown to people who don't know the story. It's not just an object, it's a way of sharing the past." Later that day, the village market was in full swing. Stalls were brimming with fresh produce, colorful fabrics, and handmade goods. Robin walked to the market square, his clay creation carefully tucked under his arm. Matthew followed behind him, his expression thoughtful. "Where are we going with this, Robin?" Matthew asked, glancing at his son. "I'm going to show them," Robin said, his voice tinged with nervous excitement. "I want people to see it, understand it. I want to share our village's story. But people don't always appreciate new things, son," Matthew cautioned, glancing around at the familiar faces of the market crowd. "They like what they know, and you know how they are with unfamiliar creations." "I think they'll understand this one," Robin said confidently. "It's not just a pot or a bowl, Father. It's something they can feel, a piece of history." The first person to stop was old Ben, the village blacksmith. He had a reputation for being skeptical, particularly about anything that wasn't a hammer or a nail. "Well, what's this?" Ben grumbled, peering down at the clay scroll in Robin's hands. "It's a story," Robin said, holding it up proudly. "A story about our village. Each mark, each symbol, tells part of our history." Ben raised an eyebrow. "History? In clay?" He scoffed. "If you want people to believe in your stories, son, you need more than clay." Robin's smile didn't falter. "Look closer, old Ben. The symbols. See how they're arranged? They follow the path of time, from the birth of the village to the present day. If you can read them, you can understand everything." Ben snorted, but knelt down to get a better look. His calloused fingers traced the lines. "Huh, it's something. I'll give you that. Can you see it?" Robin asked eagerly. Ben paused. "Aye, there's the first symbol, the earth, I suppose. Then, the farming plow, and the river that flooded every spring." Robin nodded. "Exactly. And here, The rain. The pattern here shows the year we almost didn't make it through the drought, until the first rains came and saved the crops. Well, I'll be. Ben muttered, clearly impressed. It is a story. Robin smiled. A story in clay. By mid-afternoon, more villagers had gathered around Robin's stall. They had heard old Ben's words, and slowly, curiosity brought them in. Is that our village's history? Asked Martha, the baker, her apron flour-dusted. Yes, Robin said. It's all right here. Each of us has a role in the story. Look, here's where the first potter shaped the clay, and over here, this is the great fire that almost destroyed us. But we rebuilt. We always rebuild. Martha looked closely, her face softening. You've really captured it. The feel of it, the way the clay curves. It feels like, well, like I'm touching the past. Robin beamed. That's the idea. History isn't just something you read about. It's something you experience. And when you touch this, you touch the moments that built our village. As the crowd grew larger, Matthew watched from the side, his chest swelling with pride. He had always known his son had talent, but this was something different. This was more than just craft. This was vision. Father, Robin called out suddenly. Come, show them how it's done. Matthew hesitated. Show them what? The story, Robin urged. Help me explain it. You know the history better than anyone. Matthew chuckled and approached, taking a seat next to Robin. He reached out, his fingers grazing the surface of the clay, where the symbols ran like an ancient script. Well then, he began, his voice rich with history. This here, as Robin says, is our story. It tells of the first settlers who came to these lands, how they tamed the earth, how they fought against the elements, and how they built Larkhill into the village it is today. The crowd listened in rapt attention as Matthew traced the symbols. This is the symbol of the first harvest, and over here, you see the storm that took out the crops. It was a year of hardship, but we carried on. The elders found a way to irrigate the fields, and we survived. Robin added, and over here is the great fire that nearly destroyed the town. My great-grandfather's kiln exploded, but they didn't give up. They rebuilt the whole village from the ashes. Exactly, Matthew said. This isn't just about us. This is about every generation that came before us, the people who worked the land and shaped it into something strong. This clay, he tapped the scroll gently, carries their legacy. The crowd was silent for a moment, each person deep in thought. Then, as if a collective breath had been taken, the murmurs started. Didn't know we had so much history, said old Ben, his tone uncharacteristically respectful. I never thought of it that way, Martha said softly. It makes you feel like you're part of something bigger, like we're all connected, said one of the farmers. Our stories, they live on, in the land, in the earth, in the clay. As the market began to close and the sun dipped below the horizon, Robin's heart swelled with a quiet joy. People were still gathered around his stall, talking about the story, about the symbols, about the history of Larkhill. Matthew placed a hand on his shoulder. Well done, son. You've done something no one else has ever done before. Robin looked up at his father, his eyes shining. Do you think they understand? Matthew smiled. I think they see it now. You've given them a piece of the past, Robin. You've made history come alive. Robin smiled back, a quiet pride settling in his chest. It's just the beginning, Father. We'll tell more stories, share more of what we've built. Matthew's smile grew wider. And I think you've found your place in this world. A storyteller in clay.